Feel the hands. Listen to sound. Feel the hands. Perceive the feeling of the hands and the sound as in awareness. This is in awareness. Notice sound. Notice the changing nature of sound. Notice the unchanging nature of awareness. The silent knowing, the background. Move between two sense spaces. Listen to sound. Feel the hands. Notice that the sense objects are changing. The awareness that knows them is unchanging. Be that awareness. Sounds, bodily feelings are in awareness. The same is true of thoughts and emotions. These are objects in awareness. Be that awareness. The breath. The breath is changing, moving in awareness. Feel the breathing, changing. And then the knowing of that is unchanging. The background. So the foreground is thoughts, emotions, sounds, bodily feelings, pain, memories, all the rest of it. These are objects in awareness. Be that awareness. Let your awareness be open and receptive. So all conditions are acceptable, all conditions come and go. So no need to pick and choose. So be the witness of change. Allow things to come, allow things to go. Be that which is not coming or going. Thoughts are objects in awareness. So when you notice yourself thinking, don't try to get rid of thought, but notice that a thought ends. It has an ending. But the knowing is always there. So we're not thinking about this moment, but we're awakening to how it actually is before we think about it. Stop there.
Thank you, Lord. The listener formally requested Dhamma talk.
Paul will request for Dhamma talk.
Hi, William. Hi, Karina.
Brahma Chaloka Dipati Sampati Saatan Jali Anan Divaram Ayatata Saatida Saata Paraja Kajatika Dese tu Dhammam Anukam Pimam Pajam.
Can you get it on the keyboard? Where's volume? I can't find it. I've got an Apple keyboard. I just got to get the volume down here, William.
Oh, or down.
Down.
Down. That's fine.
Okay, there. Yeah. Sorry about that. Technical difficulty.
Do you want me to request again, Paul?
Wait, no. That was great. That was like Olympic. You get an Oscar for that. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. Okay. Hello, everyone. Nice to see you. How many screens we have? 6. Here at Tisarana, we have a lot of lovely friends visiting the monastery. And yesterday or the other day, Stevie, you saw a bear. There we go. So the bear's back on our compost heap. It's been very hot, but very quite wet. So it's very green and beautiful. Lots of deer fly, quite vicious. So we're doing well here. And I'm doing well. I'm feeling healthy. This year we have 4 bhikkhus. Ajahn Pavaro, many of you know, he's been teaching in Southeast Asia. Venerable Amasiri, Venerable Padipo, and then we have 4 or 5 lay residents also. So we're a community of about 8 or 9 right now, which is a nice size. So that's us. Before I open the screen for this talk, because I haven't prepared a talk, I asked someone in the audience here to suggest a title. So Ludovic said, could you talk about family life? And of course, I'm the last guy that knows anything about family life. And yet that's where you're at, right? So I should give it a go, but I don't know what I'm talking about, family life. So I was just, while we're meditating, I thought, well, what would that entail? Well, I think the thing I wouldn't understand is the strong, intimate relationship you have with a partner, and then the strong feelings you have with children. So I've never really experienced a marriage or something like that. So I could be really naive about this. But I think that whatever you experience in those relationships, I think there would be a lot of love and a lot of beauty. But I think there'd be a lot of fear too, I imagine, because like when I rarely see an infant, but if I see an infant for whatever reason, and I see how vulnerable this little being is. And then when I talk with people who've had difficult childhoods, how vulnerable the mind is and the heart and emotions. So it's a huge responsibility, children, family, and yet it's also a vocation, I would say, because to me, Buddhism tends to talk about two or three vocations. One vocation is the vocation of a monastic, and very few people want to do that. And the other vocation is family life. And the thing about vocation is that it is something you have to surrender to. If you're a sincere practitioner, if you're not just very worldly and heedless and so on, if you're a sincere practitioner, which we all are, then there is actually a way of considering the family life is your monastery, because both of us, monastics or lay folk, family folk, have to surrender this if we're going to do it well. If I'm going to do monasticism well, I can't live here and somehow just try to get my own preferences. That would just be a disastrous monastic life, and I'd be very unhappy. So I have to surrender to a structure, surrender to a structure which I haven't constructed, live with people who I don't really know very well. So similarly, family life has this necessity of really giving yourself to the well-being of the whole family, and that's quite beautiful. That's quite a noble thing to do. But also, I was just proliferating a bit during the meditation. I thought, what if I would have got married when I was young? I ordained at 24 or 25. So what if I would have got married at that age? My poor wife. She would have had to endure all my moods, all my foolishness, all my childishness, all my goodness too. But, when I think about the immaturity that I was experiencing at 25 or 26, and that would have been projected onto just one person, I don't know. So from, thinking about that, I could see you need a lot of forgiveness, because the spiritual life is it's an exploration of participating in life in very beautiful ways, through giving, through good moral values, through responsibility, but it's also an exploration of your dark side. And we all have a dark side. We all have fears and angers and rages, and if then those have been conditioned from childhood and we haven't processed them, they're going to come up sometime. So they're going to come up vis-a-vis the one person that you're closest to, or whatever, quite often. And this can be very, very painful, I imagine. So I guess people could correct me, but forgiveness must be a pillar of family life, must be a central theme. But forgiveness would also have to be within the boundaries of decency. So like as a monk, if I make a mistake and I say something which is unkind to another monk, or cruel, so the other monk might forgive me, I hope so. But if I did it 6 times, he said, wait a minute, Charlie, this is not on. We do not do that to each other. We do not dump on each other. Okay, you got angry that time, but that's not a behavior that we will tolerate. So I would think, and that's our Vinaya. It's a Vinaya based on compassion and responsibility. We have a responsibility to live in a corporate way, in a communal way, where we all agree upon the rules. We all agree, yeah, we're signing up for this. This is the way the Buddha set it up for us. And we're not signing up just to remodel Theravada Buddhism according to our desires, views, and opinions. I don't know how you do that in family life. You must be a constant negotiation. I suppose, or not. One of the things I once heard about what makes a good marriage in Buddhism. Well, slightly facetious, but if the husband and wife or the partners both have the same level of morality. So if they're both criminals or they're both ethical, they'll probably get along fine. But if one has criminal intent and the other has strong sila, this ain't going to work. Very interesting. If both have the same level of generosity, if both are mean skinflints, it might work. If both are very generous, it would be helpful. But if one is a mean skinflint, the other is generous, it probably isn't going to fly either. And the third one is if both have the same level of contemplation. So if both are very worldly, never look at their inner world and always just project everything outwards, their hatreds and their passions, and are very distracted, they'll probably somehow work it out. And if both are very contemplative, they'll take responsibility for their disagreements and they'll try to grow through their relationship. But if one is very worldly and the other is contemplative, that's not going to fly as well. So I suppose I'm just winging this, right? But I suppose then in what would you negotiate? Look, I often thought like education. What if you and your partner have a different sense of what good education is? You'd really have to be able to talk. You'd really have to be able to talk through, or you have different like political agendas. So the capacity to listen, disagree, but to listen and put yourself in the shoes of the other is compassion. Even though you disagree, you disagree with that maybe avenue, but if there isn't the capacity to allow the other person to express a view which is counter to yours, then there's never any real communication. And that's a big ask, I suppose, for any kind of human being. But you can try. But also that there isn't just the fearfulness of expressing a counter opinion. So a fearfulness which doesn't want to say, well, actually, I disagree with you for this reason, that's not going to work either, because that's very, very stifling. Now you can imagine, maybe again, I'm being naive, and this is it doesn't work that way, I'm not sure. But imagine if that were to be the pathway of your spiritual development, just the ability to communicate with another person, just the patience and love to do that. And what if that doesn't exist? What if one part of the partners very worldly and you're contemplative? Well, you still have to use that vehicle because you're in it now and you're committed. You still have to use that vehicle for Dharma. And that's where it's important to see that the vehicle kind of takes you along, but your participation in the vehicle is your own integrity and your own interest in why you suffer. And not just saying I suffer because of that other person. If that other person wasn't here, I'd be really, really hunky-dory. Maybe, right? So that means that in whatever vocation we find ourselves, and quite often it is like that, we find ourselves in some situation, then our spiritual duty, would you say, or I would say our integrity would be to be curious about my reactions to my children, or my fears for their well-being, my fears that they'll get hurt, and to actually use that to look at fear, to use that to look at irritation. So your kids and your partner, your spouse, they become your ajahns, right? You don't tell them that. you, you don't want to do that. That's going too far. But they become the kind of litmus test of where am I at with this now? Where how am I with this person or these people? And I imagine that like monastic life is very spacious. As you can see, that's why you come here, right? It's just got so much space that it's a beautiful life, but also in the early years, it's not terribly beautiful because most of us are working with some dark energies, our fears and our self-disparagements or passions, whatever it is, and they're powerful. But we are given a space to just be messed up, to be afraid, to be angry, but not act it out and not run away from it. Now, family life obviously is so taken with responsibilities that you have, I imagine, you have very little bandwidth for processing all the stressors and pressures that come up, because you have to get food on the table, you have to pay the mortgage, you have to get to work, you blah, 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 blah. It just goes. And if you have 2, 3 kids, whew, I can't imagine. So that's the vocation. Okay, I have to do this, and I give that up. And that's a good thing. You try to make it a good thing. You try to make it an honorable thing and a loving thing as much as you can. But obviously you need to rest the mind. And that's where daily life practice comes in, doesn't it? Where you can, like, if I'm always plugged into my responsibilities, then I'm never available to the background, as I say. I'm never available for the silence of the mind. And that's always there, undoubtedly. But if I'm always preoccupied with the khandhas, in a Buddhist way of saying, or with my responsibilities, then my mind is always out. And much of life is that way, no doubt. So to kind of develop again, I never did this, right? So this is very, very, very theoretical, because I didn't even have a lay practice. I didn't even know how to meditate. And I just went to Thailand and became a monk. So I had no structure or anything. I just kind of, for some reason, I went for it. But I have heard that lay people have good practice, so that's what I heard. So then this takes a lot of discipline. This takes a serious commitment to putting everything down. And in modern life, putting everything down is very, very difficult because of our access to media. The media overstimulates us, obviously. So I'm just reading a book about Ireland and County Clare, a fictitious village called Faha, where the people are just living in a time where electricity is one of the last places in Ireland to get electricity. It's a novel with not much of a plot, and it's just describing their lives, but also describing when it was dark, it was dark. Right? You couldn't scroll through the iPhone until 12:30 at night, right? So our culture overstimulates us, and we overstimulate ourselves because there is so much material to look at and observe and so on. And that overstimulation just creates a tremendous amount of imagery and thinking. So it's very, very hard to calm the mind, very, very hard. So a lifestyle, an urban lifestyle, most of us are urban, that honors the responsibilities of children and family, and yet also realizes that without a break, without some silence, without putting the world down, it's just going to get more and more stressed. Requires quite a determination, much more than a monk has. Because a monk's determination is set up by the community. So a man ordains as an anagarika or as a samanera or as a bhikkhu. If he wants to come to the meditation, he comes. If he doesn't want to come to the meditation, he comes. This is not optional, Venerable. This is not like, maybe I'll do it, and everyone signs up for that. So the whole structure of monastic life is carrying young members of the community and really teaching them how to meditate, have self-discipline. And as you know, our discipline is like for us 1 year as an anagarika, as a kind of novice, second year as a samanera, and then 5 years. 5 years with a teacher. So that's 7 years with a teacher. And all the time, the structure is saying, no, this is moral discipline. This is right speech. And the whole structure is supporting and helping a person to develop the inner discipline than to be free to roam and to go with other teachers or live on their own. 7 years. Okay? On and helpful. So lay life, you don't have that. You don't have that structure. So you really need to be very determined, I think, and yet not be a creep to your family. Because we've seen that too, right? Like, you guys wash the dishes. I'm meditating, right? I'm serious. And you can cook, and but this is serious. And the kids will throw the frying pan at you, or someone will, and fair enough. So that's also obnoxious. Someone comes back from the monastery and says, you guys can take the garbage out. And because that's not important. And I'm more important than you. My meditation is more important than you. And you get lost in the suttas and study. And wait. You've got responsibility. So that would be a very selfish way to enter into family life. And I've seen, people do that. Men do that to their family. No, this is what you have to give to. So always I think the underlying tone of any commitment, any vocation is generosity, giving, self-surrender, kindness, compassion, love. That's the underlying tone. But then we have to deal with our dark sides, our angers, and not suppress them. So when you're at work or with your family and the dark side comes up, you have to suppress it. You have to be a decent person. You can't just dump it on everyone, right? So we do. We have to push it away. But we also have to give it time to manifest. And so designing a lifestyle where you have space within that family life, where you can just be with whatever's there, allows for like purification to take place. And people ask me, how do you do that? Well, I don't know. Because I became a monk. But my sorry, my pat answer tends to be, and I keep coming back to that, is a strong morning practice. Because when I talk to people, when they get back from work, if they have kids, well, they have to give time to the kids. And when the kids are then maybe older or they're asleep, then usually the brain is a total vegetable. And you want to veg out, right? You just don't have the energy. And fair enough. You just want to watch a rom-com or basketball game or something. And that's fair enough too. You don't want to be too idealistic. Oh, I shouldn't watch television. I should just meditate. Well, you'll probably just fall asleep if you're meditating. So you have to give yourself a chance to relax too. Otherwise you get so serious about meditation. So from what I, talking with people, morning, the people who are morning people are have an advantage where you carve out a chunk in the morning, which is yours. And you do it religiously. You're really, really diligent on that. You don't compromise. If someone's broken the leg, you can help them out. But like you really make this a serious commitment, and you let the family know that. That's where I've seen lay practices most successful, and those people have a lot of self-discipline, but they're very good family people. But they do that, and so that time in the morning is, it's oftentimes not a time for deep samadhi. Samadhi is a time usually when you're on a retreat or you're in the monastery for a longer period of time, then samadhi is possible. I think in family life, that morning is like, oh, here comes, that argument I had with ABC. Now I get the karma, the resultant of that. Okay, it feels this way. It feels this way. It feels this way. So if it has a chance to get liberated, and all the time you're developing witnessing, because that's what you're doing in medicine, aren't you? You're not like, I don't think lay practice in the morning is about, I'm really going to get deep samadhi. If that happens, good on you. I doubt if that happens often. I think mostly it happens like, wow, why did I say that? That was a stupid thing to say. Or I'm never going to forgive her. Or whatever drama has come up. Yeah, or are my kids going to be okay? And fears and all that. And that's okay, because that's the dark side. And that, oh, this is what fear feels like. This is what drama feels like. This is like what anxiety, how's my kid going to be? My kid is sick. This is what anxiety feels like. So all the time you're witnessing Dharma. Because when you're looking at fear is fear, anger is anger, doubt is doubt, resentment is resentment, you're seeing them as objects rather than, I'll never forget that person and I shouldn't have done this. That's ego. So meditation, you're not going to ego, you're going to suchness, awakening to the very feeling of being inadequate, the very feeling of being afraid for your kids. What's that like? So you're witnessing the khandhas as Dharma. You're seeing the stream of consciousness as Dharma. And because you're doing that in the morning, you're releasing the stresses on one hand to some extent. And then if you go on retreat, or if you stay here more than 3 weekends a year, I'll give you a note next time. This is an in-joke, by the way. Each morning you are cultivating awareness. So you're purifying the mind, letting go of stresses, but you're cultivating that witnessing background, even though you don't know it. Even though you don't know it. And that starts to play out in your daily life. It starts to play out in a sense that you want to say something reactive to your partner and you hold back because you've been burned. It's not going to work. It's counterproductive. You've experienced that. And no, but you don't go there. And so your awareness is stronger. Your witnessing is stronger. And what you're witnessing is now in your communication and family life or work life, your capacity to, as I keep saying, live at 2 levels. The level of awareness with the outer and the level of awareness with the inner. You've got that skill to do that. And lo and behold, you react less. And you know that already. You all know that. Otherwise, we'd be in asylums, just reactive all the time. But that's the encouragement, that even though a morning meditation might be difficult, you develop witnessing. And then that witnessing starts to be a natural function in your awareness of life, and your reactivity gets worse. I mean, it's a lifetime's work, but I do think that the morning is the time to try to do that, and let the family know this is important for me in my time. The joke I like to tell, I've said this so many times. I had a friend in Manchester, I think, a lawyer, and if he tried to meditate at home, his kids would throw tennis balls at him. So he built an office. He was a lawyer. He had a cupboard, and he made a little meditation cupboard in there. And then if he was getting stressed out, he'd say to his secretary, "Tell them I'm in conference." And he'd go and he'd meditate in the office. So he figured out, in some kind of way where he could do it. So then if awareness can be enhanced and made stronger, then you start to see in this vocation of family person or this vocation of monastic person, I start to see patterns. I can see with this kind of a monk, I always feel intimidated. But with this other kind of monk, I intimidate. There's the personality operating. So like I once noticed that if I gave a Dhamma talk, because when you're giving a Dhamma talk to an audience, you're kind of looking at people's reactions. And I began to see I was always reacting to older men if they were falling asleep and weren't paying attention to me. And I thought, what the hell's that about? And I realized, oh, it's my father. I want my father to listen to me. I mean, that was my conclusion. I don't know if it's true. But, you have, that's what personality is. It's this whole construct. It's a reaction. And you haven't made it, but life has made it in you. And you begin to witness your personality rather than just be your personality. And you witness those parts of your personality which are wholesome and those parts of your personality which are unwholesome. And the unwholesome parts, you're going to say, no, I'm not going there. You don't repress it, but you say, no, I don't want to be reborn as that guy. And as you do that, your capacity to be a better person is actually facilitated by all your buttons being pressed by these different situations. But having said that, if your buttons get so pressed that you're stressed out, then you burn out. This isn't like every situation you're going to learn from. So you do need the space. You need to do that. But then then your fears and anxieties and resentments, you begin to see, oh, with this person, I see that pattern happening. And you begin to have much more understanding of what attachment is in your case, how you get caught up as a personality, and you take your refuge now as the background of witnessing rather than the foreground of personality. And then what happens is personality manifests, but it manifests more and more from the Brahma Viharas rather than from greed, hatred, and delusion. Personality is always going to manifest. Ajahn Chah was different than Lompo Liam. Ajahn Chah was very charismatic. Lompo Liam's very quiet. And I think you've probably heard there are many stories of like we would sit underneath Lompo Chah's kuti and we'd be fanning him and he would be sitting on a wicker chair and it'd be very silent. Very, very silent. And you get just like, hey, no one's here. This is nice. And Lompo's eyes would be closed or not. And then a villager would come in and all of a sudden the spark of personality would come out and Ajahn Chah would be there. And you'd see it like manifesting out of appropriateness. This is appropriate. It isn't some ego manifesting or that way. And I think more and more that's what we begin to see, that our personality will manifest in different ways, but it'll manifest from a good place, from the place of caring, from the place of conviviality, from the place of good responsibility, from the place of compassion and that, because that's the natural result of going to your dark side. That's the natural result of witnessing your dark side and not believing in it. It's not who I am. I am not this anger, I'm not this fear, this is not who I am. And bearing witness to the difficult things we have. So, we have these different vehicles. I'm not switching vehicles. I don't know what I would do. I would sometimes, I never wanted to disrobe. I'm very fortunate. Sometimes I thought, well, what would I do? What would I do if I disrobed? I thought, well, I'll be a postman. It'd be nice to walk around and deliver mail, things like that. So I'm very fortunate. But a lot of, I mean, I've lived this life for a while now, and I've seen a lot of men come and go. It just didn't work for them. It just didn't work for them for whatever reason. And so they had to find another vehicle. different kind of vehicle, different kind of situation, and that's all right too. So there's some thoughts on family life.
Andamayang Dhamma Kataya Sadhu Karam Tatamase Sadhu 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 Anumodami.
Any questions for anyone?
Thank you so much, Longpo. This is so beautiful. Family life, what a way to start. So,
I guess, I don't know.
it's what a way to start, and particularly for many of us who are beginning the Vassa together with the Sangha, and practicing at home. This is really a very appropriate reminder about appropriateness, So I'd like to welcome friends here in the community. If you have any questions, if you have any comments or reflections you'd like to share with Longpo, please feel free to click on the raise hand button or to type in the chat box. I will now invite you to communicate and share it with Longpo. Well, many of us here are family dwellers, householders. I'm quite sure we'll have got lots of questions. It's very rare for a monk to speak on this topic. And I think Longpo was very courageous to venture into this. Anyone at all? Yes, Sue? Sue, would you like to unmute yourself, Sue? You have a question about fear.
Hi, Sue. Where are you?
I'm from Malaysia,
There you go.
Lumpur. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Please go ahead.
I have a question about fear, Lumpur.
Yeah.
Just probably about 4 months ago, I don't know why suddenly there's so much fear arise in me. It lasted for more than a month. It was actually haunting me. I don't know how it come about, but I sought the guidance of my teacher, and eventually it went away. So I was wondering, Lompo, if it arise again, how would I be better to manage it? I wasn't aware that it arise, no, but suddenly there was so much of fear that I have never experienced that fear before in my life. It's a really terrible experience.
Yeah, fear is a thing. How old are you? May I ask?
Yeah. I'm 68 this year.
68.
Yeah.
And
I think it's like what you mentioned, Longpo, it's the dark side that comes up. Maybe I don't know. So that's why I asked the question, because you mentioned just now about the dark side, something like that. You see, so I thought maybe I would Longpo for some guidance also.
Is your family situation changing? Are you more alone or anything like that?
In
Not
a way,
really.
yes, because my mom passed away about 3 years ago, so probably I'm more alone in that sense, because I'm single.
And may I ask, has your life been busy with responsibilities, taking care of your mom and family and so on?
No, my mom passed away 3 years ago, so responsibilities have gone away.
So the last 3 years you've had a lot of space?
Yeah.
Okay.
But there were also a lot with the family.
Right. And what kind of meditations have you done in the past?
Well, I have done Vipassana, and then from Vipassana, I've now gone to Metta.
Okay.
I've been
when you meditate, do you just try to focus on an object and get rid of thinking?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
Not to say be aware. Okay, there's thinking. So, I try to see that it goes away. So probably in a way I'm trying to make it go away, I think. Maybe I'm not sure.
Okay, so, well, fear is an object, correct?
Yeah.
Right? It's an object in awareness, as is sound, correct?
Yes.
Right? So an emotion is an object. It comes and it goes.
Yes.
Just as the sound of traffic is an object, it comes and it goes. You get that, right?
Mhm.
So when you have, let's say, if you have, let's say there's some construction going on outside
Yes.
your window and it's very, very
Yeah.
loud, then that sound has a quality of, it's a negative sound, right?
Mhm.
And your desire mind doesn't want that sound. So if you aren't aware of your desire to get rid of that sound, you will suffer. That sound itself is not suffering. It's just unpleasant, say. So the unpleasant becomes suffering when you don't want it to be there. So that's Four Noble Truths. The craving to get rid of that sound is the problem, not the sound. Correct? So far, so good.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, fear is the same way. Fear is just a very loud, unpleasant noise in your emotional system. And fear itself is not suffering. It's the desire not to have the fear that is the suffering. Now, that's very hard to realize because it's so unpleasant. So to diagnose the problem, you have to accept the fear. It feels like this, and say to yourself, what do I want? Or what do I not want in this situation? And you'll notice that you don't want the fear. Now, if you start meditating with the desire to get rid of the fear, it won't work. You just suppress it, it'll come back again. But if you do metta bhavana sincerely, then you'll welcome the fear. Because now you're having compassion for whatever arises in consciousness. If you do metta bhavana in a kind of list of people way, then it's just a list of people. But the deeper implication of metta bhavana, that it's an open heart which accepts all things and rejects none. It's an acceptance of fear. So when the fear comes up again, if it comes up again, I don't know why it came up again, but if it comes up again, is it a problem? Or is it the problem that I want a comfortable mindset? I don't want the fear. And I would say that is the Four Noble Truths, is the problem. Fear is not the suffering here. Fear is certainly unpleasant and whatever, but the real cause of the suffering is the desire not to have the fear. If you can see that, and you have to have a very investigative mind, if you can see that, then the fear will manifest according to whatever, and it will run its course, and you'll feel very peaceful because now you've witnessed desire and you haven't attached to desire. And that's what Nirodha is about. Nirodha, the third noble truth, is the cessation of desire. So if you're interested in fear, right, then when it comes up, you'll investigate. If you're just afraid of fear, I don't want that again, you'll do the same reaction. So you have to be interested in the fear. And that is counterintuitive. What your intuition says, get out of my life. I don't want this fear. And that is ego and that is craving. So that's why we say, welcome the fear as an object in awareness. Obviously, don't do fearful things. Don't go out into dark alleys and hug bears or things like that. But actually, see that the fear is teaching you something about craving. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I uh, still a bit hard to catch it. It's still a bit hard to catch it, but I will try.
Go back. I mean, it's a good question. It's an important question. Let's keep with it. Go back to the construction next to you. So it's outside your window and they're knocking down a building, right?
Mhm.
And that noise would be unpleasant, correct?
Yes.
Now if you knew that that construction was going to be there for a month and you have to live here, you would eventually accommodate that and say, it's okay. Or you'd go crazy. So something in you would say, wait. It is as it is. I accept it. You would let go of the craving just to stay sane. It would still be unpleasant. But if you hated that sound for a month, you'd have to come to my monastery. So it's it's the same principle. It's the same principle. But like fear is now another object. It's an emotional object. It's not so obvious. And because fear is so threatening, we are afraid of fear. We fear fear. And so we don't have enough mindfulness to see what is the cause of suffering. So we have to say to the fear, this is suffering. Suffering is like this. Not I am suffering, because that's ego. It's suffering. This is suffering. Suffering feels like this. That's the first noble truth. The first noble truth isn't, oh, I'm suffering fear. Oh my gosh, why do I have so much fear? That's delusion. That's not awareness. It's ego. That's thought. So you have to go back to the fear and say, oh, fear feels like this. Suffering feels like this. And then you say, what's the cause of my suffering? And that opens up to craving and the abandonment of craving. In this sense, vibhava tanha. Okay, we'll go to another question, Sue.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you, Sue.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
My pleasure. Yeah. Who's that? Karen or Malika?
Long Paul, before we go to Karen and Malika, I've just got a question here in typewritten. I think it's similar to what you just answered, but maybe you want to add extra comments to it. And this is from someone with the mobile phone Samsung. Dear Long Paul, how do we bring up the dark side in meditation? Do we systematically review our past to look for dysfunction? I was clearing my old diaries and I recall forgotten events that were traumatic. Should I go through my diaries and meditate on painful events? Thank you for this useful teaching, Long Paul.
I would suggest no. Don't go anywhere. Just stay here. And if you can make the mind calm, be grateful. But if dark things come up, don't be afraid of them. Look at them. But I wouldn't start digging into things, because that creates more sense of I am someone who has a dark side. You are not someone who has a dark side. You are the witness that knows the dark side. So if it comes up, okay, you got to deal with it. Doesn't come up, great. Huh? Now, if a person's very repressed and you know, they have a lot of trauma and they're living a life which is obviously false. They're living a personality which is layered on some deep fear, then they need therapy. They need someone who can coax out of them a self-understanding of why are they always exhibiting this personality? They're obviously not happy. So there is that. There is that. And that's a lot of people have trauma. A lot of people have had horrible childhoods. And that's where sometimes meditation doesn't quite work, because a lot of meditation is meditation. Meditation is kind of predicated on the idea that you will push everything aside and just be with whatever you're going to be with. And that is actually dangerous if there's trauma, and that trauma needs to be made conscious. So that's where we have like incredible advances now in understanding trauma in our cultures. And we have very good, all kinds of really good therapists and therapies, which are very helpful. That's a different question to me. That is something that is also important. But I would say if someone has a childhood traumas and they look for a therapist, I would say find a therapist that understands Buddhism. Don't reinvent the sense of self around the trauma. Don't go down that trail. So like I know some therapists who have a really good Buddhist practice and have a good therapy practice, and they're brilliant. And I consult them. I say, how do I deal with this? And how, and because they have a lot of experience around that.
Thank you, Long Paul. And
Okay, Karen, you wanna?
Karen?
Karen's up to bat.
Yeah.
Hi, Long Paul. How are you?
Hi, Karen, I'm good.
Long Paul, thank you for that talk. That was really appropriate and so helpful. And currently, I am dealing with the passing of the old guard, which is basically my aunt's. And aunt is 93 and an end stage cancer, and mom is 85, who is trying to wrap her head around the loss of her own siblings. And I see this sense of loss as well as confusion. How would I be most helpful to her in her understanding of what's happening to her? Because our moms don't really have a contemplative background. I mean, they've they're very good people. It's just that like you said, in family life, it's always been one thing after another. Wonderful responsibility of taking care of each other, warm-heartedness, but not very much of understanding the bigger picture, so to speak. So if I'm faced with a situation where mom asks, so what comes next? How what happens when I die? And I realize that I just draw a blank. So I don't know what to say and how to say it compassionately. So could you please offer some
Well,
advice?
first of all, may I say, don't try to fix anything, right?
Yes.
Just wait
Mm,
and get your heart in a space that is very into listening rather than fixing. So get out of thought
mhm,
and let compassion witness, because you're bearing witness to someone dying.
mm,
And when you're bearing witness to someone dying, it is a very compassionate relationship. But if you go to thought, the compassion then gets sidetracked into worry or concern or ideas of fixing. So compassion, when you look at someone that's suffering and you don't allow yourself just to go to thought, then you're with the person. You're with their suffering. And that's a very difficult thing to do because you don't want them to suffer.
mm,
And because you don't want them to suffer, your mind can quickly go into trying to fix some aspect of where they're at. And then if you have ideas of the last moment of dying is very important, then you start to play pujas for them and make sure they die with a puja. And it gets all terribly complicated, right? And that's all just preconceived notions of what death is in Buddhism and so on. So I would suggest the best way is to work with yourself first. And if you are there trying to fix something, then move away from that, because that's you. And this isn't about you, it's about this person. And then if the person, whatever they say, then you have the best chance of communion.
mm,
And that communion might be just listening until the person dies. But if you have an idea that the person should be contemplative and they should be able to contemplate and reflect and so on, that's just an ideal or an idea. And then in your listening, what you'll find is you start to just intuitively redirect the person's mental movement to something wholesome. We all do that. So the person starts to remember horrible memories about that they got hurt. They say, "Yeah, Mom, I remember that." But you know, did you remember the time we played ping pong in Times Square or something like that? Whatever it was. And you know, you have this intuition of caring, and you have wisdom if you allow it to operate. And then you find a way. But in terms of religious philosophies and so on, like if I'm with a Christian, it's rare. I've been with a few folk from Christian backgrounds. Then I try to figure out Christian language. If I'm, you know, so you have to figure out your moms or aunties or whoever universe rather than your Buddhist universe. And then how can you reassure them in a way which, you know, it's okay, it'll be all right. So like if someone asks me from a Buddhist background, you know, what happens? I said, well, you've lived a good life. It's good. It'll be good. You don't know, but why not? You know, if you tell them, well, I don't know, you know, my deeply philosophical feeling is that I'm agnostic on this. You know, you don't need to do that. It's not the time for that. So how can you reassure the person in their own cultural format rather than your cultural format? So you're a very, you know, you're a deep thinker, you're very contemplative and all that, but that's not Auntie's trip. You know, Auntie's trip might be Pure Land. Fine. Kuan Yin will be there. She'll be right with you, Mom, all the way. And that's fine because you're reassuring her on her own cultural level. So that's, I think, if you're kind of really tuned in, you'll rise to the occasion that way, rather than kind of have some kind of Buddhist, you know, viewpoint that you have to get across or you can't say anything. You can be kind of more playful.
So Luang Por, you're saying that in terms of, you know, her question on transcendence would be her own, I should broach it from her world, her perspective, rather than you know, any universal truth, so to speak. Yeah.
Yeah. What makes you happy?
Okay.
Because that what you want to bring up is happy states of mind.
Mm-hmm.
And confidence, and this would be okay. Don't be afraid. You've lived a good life. You've been a good person. You've cared for your family, you know, those kinds of things. And if the person hasn't lived a good life, hasn't taken care of the family, then crack a joke. You got to get out of there. That's not a good one to go to.
Because Mom keeps asking, like, okay, what happens next? Do I meet the people who have left me already, you know?
Hey, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll probably meet Uncle George, and he's waiting for you. I mean, what does it matter?
Okay.
You just, you know, what you want to do is reassure them, because you don't know, I don't know, no one knows.
Yeah.
But how can you intuitively reassure the person so that they don't fall into fear? They don't fall into the abyss of the unknown. They, you know, they have a light heart, and your intuition can do that.
Thank you, Luang Por. That was really compassionate and very helpful, because, you know, I drew a blank because Mom says, where do I go next? No, who do I see? Do I see does she see the husband? Does my aunt see the husband she lost at 36 now that she's 93? And I'm like, just blank space.
Not the husband she didn't like, not that one.
She liked her husband. Yeah.
But you know, you asked her, well, who would you like to see? Okay, let's visualize Uncle Charlie. You know, you kind of play with it or something.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you, Luang Por. That was really helpful. Thank you.
Okay, Malika, how are you?
Hi, Malika. Malika, can you unmute yourself?
Yes. Good to see you, Ajahn. Hope you are
Good to see you.
with good health. And then, Ajahn, I was just thinking, I'm in Perth at the moment and seeing Ramani and Nalin as well. Yeah. And my question is like, not a question or comment, because you were just talking about the four helpful Sama Saddha, that is Nakula Mata and Nakula Pitta, that thing. Equal wisdom, equal faith, equal generosity. Yeah, so that, and there's another similar one in, I think it's in Anguttara Nikaya, it's called 4 kinds of marriages. Oh,
I haven't seen that one. I'm not good on my marriages.
so that is very helpful. And I
What
thought,
tell us that, because we need more information.
yeah,
What
like
is the 4 kinds of marriages?
because like the husband is a god and the wife is also like a god, and the other
Yeah.
wife is husband is like a devil and wife is like a god, and similarly
Similar kind of comparisons. Yeah, you don't want a
yeah,
devil in this. In this.
yeah. And
But
so
what is your
that
question? Did you have a question?
no, it is just to say that that was something that was very helpful for me.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's in Anguttara Nikaya, I think.
Okay.
So I'll tell Ramani that I spoke to you today.
Okay, give her my best. Okay.
Okay.
And your hair's growing back.
Oh, yeah.
It has, yeah,
Yes.
grown back. Okay.
Thank you,
Thank
Mother.
you. Thank you,
All
Beta.
right.
Thank you. Lampo, there is a typewritten question here. Shall I read it out to you?
Please do.
Okay, it's from Mackie. What would you advise a person trying to discover what livelihood to do next? Just to set in clarity, this person has left a job due to loss of interest and living on savings, but haven't figured out what to do next. So there's some kind of fear that savings will get depleted. So the question is, how would you advise this person trying to determine what would be a right livelihood to do next?
Well, it depends how old does the person name their age?
No, they didn't.
Okay. Well, that's a luxury. You know, how many people have that luxury to actually choose? And I'd be careful. I would be careful. I mean, if a person has a lot of options, to consider them the best you can, but also to see that work is a drag sometimes. You know, it's just in life, like monasticism is a drag sometimes. So be careful not to kind of seek the perfect livelihood. And yet corporate life can be very crushing, or it can be quite enriching in many, many ways. So my sense of right livelihood would be, how can you develop the Brahma Viharas as well as put food on the table and pay your rent? That seems to me a priority. If you can't cover your costs and you get in debt, you'll be running around and you won't have time for the Brahma Viharas. You only have a time for the tax collector. So, you know, kind of be reasonable. Again, here I am, a monk, talking about making money, and I don't know anything about money, but like when I see a happy livelihoods that I see is conviviality at the workplace, and a way of expression which is humane, and a job which allows decent times of rest and a chance to contemplate in that kind of environment. So like we all have potential for creativity, and I think we all like to do things well, whether it's weaving a rug or doing a spreadsheet. I've never done a spreadsheet, but I know one of our monks is very good at spreadsheets, and he can look at a spreadsheet and say, "Oh, that's a good one." I don't know what he's talking about. Not a clue. So there are skills that we have which are quite rewarding, and the Buddha said, yeah, develop skills which are rewarding and that can give expression. But if you're a clog in the wheel of production and you just have to bear that burden, then it's quite stressful. But if that's the only thing you've got, then you got to put food on the table. So it's a very complicated question, but I would say be careful, be responsible. But maybe the person doesn't have family and so on. They have the kind of freedom. But probably whatever choice one takes in changing a job, at some point you'll say, I should have taken another choice. This is the way the mind sometimes works. So, like in monasticism, quite often a monk will say, oh, I'm going to go to another monastery. And they go to the other monastery. No, I should have been in the other monastery. So we had a monk like that. And this monk would kind of he disrobed a few times, Western monk. And then he would go from one monastery to another in the Ajahn Chah tradition in Thailand. And one day Ajahn Chah said, you know, you're like a monk that has dog shit in his shoulder bag. Excuse the French. And every time you go to another monastery, you sit down and you think, oh, it stinks here. So you pick up your bag and you go to another monastery and think, wow, it really stinks here. It's in your bag. So there is that. There is that kind of discontent that we can have with life. And I'm not saying this is the case, but that can happen. And trying to find, you want to be careful to try to find perfection in samsara. Is it's very, very difficult. But there's also the courage, I think. I mean, it can be very admirable to not just live in a secure way, to take a risk. And that's very admirable, to go into the fear and to use that as a way of developing oneself. So that's not much of an answer, but 10 answers there. Again, I've been very fortunate that once I fell into this lifestyle, I've just looked at doubt as an object. And that's really, like, I've never not wanted to be a monk. I wanted to be in different monasteries many times. So I've been able to use doubt, to look at doubt as an object rather than project it outwards. But that's something different. Okay?
All right. Thank you so much, Luang Por. I think that's all the time that we have today.
All right.
Could we invite the closing by chanting the verses of sharing and aspiration, Luang Por?
Yeah. Who's going to lead that? You want me to lead that?
Could you please put the slides on the screen? Okay.
In English, huh?
Yes.
Verses of, put the slides up. Verses of sharing and aspiration. There we go. Now let us chant the verses of sharing and aspiration. Through the goodness that arises from my practice, may my spiritual teachers and guides of great virtue, my mother, my father, and my relatives, the sun and the moon, and all virtuous leaders of the world, may the highest gods and evil forces, celestial beings, guardian spirits of the earth, and the Lord of death, may those who are friendly, indifferent, or hostile, may all beings receive the blessings of my life. May they soon attain the threefold bliss and realize the deathless. Through the goodness that arises from my practice, and through this act of sharing, may all desires and attachments quickly cease, and all harmful states of mind, until I realize Nibbana in every kind of birth. May I have an upright mind, with mindfulness and wisdom, austerity and vigor. May the forces of delusion not take hold, nor weaken my resolve. The Buddha is my excellent refuge. Unsurpassed is the protection of the Dhamma. The solitary Buddha is my noble guide. The Sangha is my supreme support. Through the supreme power of all these, may darkness and delusion be dispelled.
Thank you so much, Lon Paul. We're so grateful for the beautiful session today and your compassion. I would like to now, as a global community, pay homage to you by chanting Araham and take leave from you, and wish you and the Sangha at Tisarana a very smooth, peaceful, healthy, and a happy Vassa.
Thank you. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Araham Sama Sambuddho Bhagavan Buddham Bhagavantam Avivademi. Swakado Bhagavata
Dhammo.
Subhadipano Bhagavata Sangha.
Okay, everyone, be well, and see you next time.
Thank you so much, Lon Paul. See you.
Okay, ciao.